Welcome back, lads, to another Bannerlord map making episode. My name's Matt. Today is episode 3 of the developer's blog for Green Lake, my new PvP Bannerlord map. For those of you guys that haven't seen it before, this is just where I take a few minutes to show you guys what's changed since the last time you saw it, and maybe just run through the reasons for some of the choices. If you're interested in the full development history, be sure to go back and watch the past episodes as well, but this episode I'm just going to focus on what's changed since the last time I showed you guys. So let's jump in. Already straight off the bat, you can see the new port that I showed you has been really fleshed out. I think in the last episode this was just a proof of concept with a really weird looking coloured pontoon. I've now updated this so that we've got some nice ships, we've got some shacks, we've got planks that go up onto the pontoon, fishing gear around the edge, a few fishing boats and storage facilities. Yeah, you know, it's beginning to look like the final piece for sure. From a gameplay perspective, if I go down into the water, I've tried to make this quite shallow, and that's just so that if players fall off the pontoon, it adds a bit of realism that the fighting could continue with their, top halves above the water. On the off chance that happens as well, I've added these steps in so that players that fall off can easily rejoin the action and get back onto the pontoon. Just a bit of self-critic while I'm here. I've just thought about the fact that maybe this could do with a few extra steps on some of the other sides, just so that if you do fall off, say over here, you've got less distance to travel to get back on. Maybe an extra staircase here, maybe one on the end over here as well could be quite nice. Also from a gameplay perspective, I haven't really solved the challenge in that there isn't really a reason to go here other than as players come up here, it looks quite nice on the right hand side, kind of seeing that as you travel towards the castle. Probably one of the rare situations where this would get used is if maybe the attackers were coming through this gate, the defenders were starting to win, and the attackers got pushed back. They might decide to fall back and mount a last stand from these pontoons with their nice kind of choke points. So yeah, I don't anticipate this getting too much use, but on the rare occasion it might slightly change how this map works, which would be nice. Only other change here is this nice watchtower in the distance. Because the map boundary ends just after the pontoon, players won't actually be able to get out there to the watchtower. But I just thought, as you move along the pontoon, it's nice to see this kind of going across in the foreground, because it really gives you kind of like depth of field for the mountains in the backdrop. So let's go up and have a look at the castle. Really, nothing much has changed here. From the outside it looks more or less exactly as it did in the last episode, but the keen viewers will probably notice there's something a little bit different about this corner. So I mentioned in the last episode there was like a kind of pre-made asset. I think it was the Sturgia Arena item, but I've swapped that out now for an actual custom-made building that's been put together from scratch. So what's the advantage of doing it that way? Well, I'll show you. Because it's a custom-made building, it means I get full control over how the inside looks, like the ceiling heights, all the kind of props and things that go in here, the entry points. So as attackers come through this gate, previously you would have had to have come around here, which meant the defenders could have just kind of created a semicircle and boxed you in. Now you've also got this entryway here, which means you can go through the house, into the storage room at the back, and out the other side. So it just creates, again, more attacking options to make it a bit more difficult to defend and easier to attack. When you're in a 250 versus 250 battle, you don't want to give people too much of a defender's advantage. Maybe a slight reward for getting there first, but you don't want to make the game so that whoever takes this first wins. There's no way for the attackers to overcome it, so there should always be some options. So let's go into the house, have a bit of a closer look. We've got a main entrance lobby, a few tables, nice bar area, a few shields on the wall. Everything you see here is still a work in progress, so I'm still fleshing out the house really and tidying up some issues, like the curtains coming down the side there. In here we've got another kind of eating area, storage room, getting more chandeliers, looks quite nice. Let's move up the stairs. I created a nice kind of like stair area where you've got these nice banisters, for want of a better word, that stops players from kind of falling in, but also so that you can defend the choke point at the staircase here, maybe have some archers firing down on players coming up from behind. The upstairs area, we've got a nice kind of lounge area, probably needs a few more assets to make it a bit more believable, but you guys get the general feel. And then through here we've got the kind of the main bedroom. There's a bath in the corner, a few closets, the main bed. Yeah, you know, fighting can break out here as well. Again, you've got some nice views onto the castle courtyard. So coming back through here, and this really is what this building is all about. It's the balcony. In the last episode, I thought it would be really nice to have a balcony that players could station archers on and fire into people coming into the castle, or maybe the defenders on the stairs here. Because I've made a custom building, it just means that, you know, archers can actually move onto this balcony now and fire down, which is exactly the gameplay that I was trying to achieve. Again, in the name of creating not too defensible positions, there's also a staircase on the outside, so if you do have archers here, be wary that, you know, you've got to have support from some melee units defending you here, and also some melee units defending you from the other staircase. Yeah, it's looking pretty cool. Other than that, the castle remains pretty unchanged. I think the only other really minor change is the addition of this staircase. I just thought if there were archers up on this wall, it seemed a bit unfair to have a single choke point, so I've added a second staircase just to make the access to that a bit easier from two angles. Nice. So let's go away from the castle and take a look at what's changed over here. The town is more or less the same. I'll just quickly breeze through the really subtle updates. We've now got these banners on the entranceway to the town. I think we've got a few more props maybe on the buildings than we had last time. We've got a few benches in the central courtyard. Added some grass here because I thought maybe that looked a bit too open with it just being the dirt. Create a nice kind of semicircle to show that people have walked around there. And yeah, I think maybe I've added some more rocks here that weren't there before, as I wasn't quite happy with the way that this house joined onto the hillside. But yeah, relatively this area remains unchanged. There's maybe some slight variation in the grass pattern as well, because I didn't like how the light and dark green grass just had a kind of straight line with the dark onto the light. There's a bit more variation to show that change being a bit more gradual. Yeah, I think that's it for that side. As we go over here, I've added a more elevated walkway to this area with a small fence behind it. I just thought if you were an army starting in the spawn point over here, it might be quite nice to have a few visuals to look at, so as you're heading towards the castle, you know, it looks a bit more interesting rather than just grass flatland. This also serves as a bit of protection from cavalry as well, so that if you were coming down here, you could be sure the cavalry weren't going to charge at you from the left. That's also a fair point. It's one of the reasons why I've not continued the fence all the way down. I wanted to make sure that, you know, you can get protection from cavalry charges at certain points, but, you know, I didn't want that to continue all the way around, because I wanted to make sure that we were being fair to all the players on the battlefield and giving people opportunities, whichever class they might be playing. So coming down here, this I think existed in the last episode, albeit I didn't draw too much attention to it. It's just a small little Stonehenge. It doesn't really serve any purpose because it's quite far back from where the main fighting will happen, but I just thought if you were starting here, it's just a point of interest, so that if you were trying to explain to your forces where you wanted them to head, you could just say, oh, head towards the Stonehenge, or, you know, head to the right down towards the ruins. You know, so it just makes it look a bit less samey, but doesn't really change the gameplay too much, this one. Right, so moving over here, we've got a few more of these ridges. In the last episode, I think I critiqued that maybe some of the grassy land was a bit too uniform and didn't really have enough variety. I've added some of these ridges throughout the map just to kind of make it look a bit more real, but also just add some variety to the way things look. The actual ridges are traversable, so, you know, they don't really provide any protection to players stationed on top of it. You know, other players can just charge straight up or straight down the ridge. But it's just there for aesthetic reasons, really. Nothing other than that. So let's move across to this side. When we saw this area last, this was just an open grassland. I've added a small outbuilding. Maybe the village recluse lives out here. And I've also added another ridge with a small barricade on top of it. So this particular area isn't going to be a control point. You know, the control points, if I zoom out, are going to be the castle, the main town, and the ruins over here. But if you were an army being spawned over here, as you head towards the ruins, again, it's just something to go by, something to look at on your way to the control point. It also kind of acts as a fallback position, so that if you were attacking the control point over here and things weren't going too well, you could fall back to this area and let the defenders come to you. You know, provides a bit more of an area where you could have some archers stationed up here firing down as the attackers, or what were previously the defenders, come across here to try and finish off your force. Yeah, I mean, happy with that. I don't think it needs too much more. I think it does what it says on the tin. So the final control point over here remains relatively unchanged. I think I've added a few more stones and things dotted around to give it that slightly more ruinous feel. And again, continuing that theme from earlier, there's quite a few additional ridges that have been added to the battlefield, just to make it seem a bit more natural in the way that it looks. There's also a small staircase on the ruins here. I thought it might be quite nice for players to mount maybe like a last stand from on top of here. In fact, looking at this while we're on this playthrough, there is a small gap here that probably needs to be filled in. I can sort of see that units might get stuck in there, so we'll have to sort that out before we let people jump in and playtest this. Other than that, the only real difference now is that the fog settings have been modified slightly. Again, I've tried to modify them in a way that complements the gameplay. I wanted to make sure that if you spawned, you won't immediately be able to see the enemy force. You know, they'll be way in the distance behind the fog. But as you move towards a control point, you might just get glimpses of them in the distance. You know, maybe if you're heading towards the castle, you might just make out some silhouettes going across this ridge here into the main castle gate. So I thought, you know, from a army management perspective, it just gives the commanders a bit of information to work with, but not too much. But also the fact that you can't see too far into the distance, it also gives you the opportunity to trick your enemy. So let's go with that example with units coming across the ridge here. A commander might think, right, the opponents are going towards the castle, let's rush up here into this gate. But, you know, it could be a trap. The enemy team might have just sent a few units up here to make the players think the castle was being taken, when actually their main force might be coming round the back of this building. So, you know, the fog, it's not just fog. I've tried to think about it and find the right levels that complement the gameplay for this map as best as possible. I may tweak them a little bit more, maybe slightly reduce the visibility. But yeah, the fog as well, I've tried to make it a bit lower down, so as I kind of zoom out, you can see here that it's quite low rise. And that's just so that from the player level, it just makes sure that you can still kind of see the mountains towering out the back of the kind of castle and the landscape. So, that, I think, fellas, is all for today. I'm probably going to do at least one more developer's vlog for this, once I've fleshed out all maybe the interiors of some of the buildings. But yeah, I think we're almost done with this one. It's really, really not far off at all now. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.